Get fired up. Hello, my friends, and welcome to the 232nd episode of the Sales Podcast. I'm Wes Schaefer, the Sales Whisperer, your host. Last week, we had Mary Lou Tyler. She is the co-author of two books, Predictable Revenue and Predictable Prospecting. She wrote Predictable Revenue with Aaron Ross, and she wrote Predictable Prospecting with Jeremy Donovan. Jeremy is the author of the international bestseller, How to Deliver a TED Talk. And Aaron was instrumental in launching and helping Salesforce really hit its stride back in the day. So great books, great resources, great information. Mary Lou held nothing back. If you visit thesaleswhisperer.com/session 231, you can see the links to everything we talked about, and you can get those books. There's also an Amazon link on each episode now, or you can just go to thesaleswhisperer.com/Amazon. And that will forward to my Amazon store where I load every book and all the technology that I use for the podcast and in my business. So if you're going to order these books anyway, it's a great way to help support the podcast. I'll make a few nickels and you pay the same price anyway. Okay, so any one of my guests that has a book, has a program, I've added it to the Amazon store. Okay, so thesaleswhisperer.com/Amazon. You will be glad you did. Coming up today, we've got David Hutchison. He is the author, the inventor, the trainer, co-founder of a training company called Fire Up. So that's where the introduction came in. And I won't steal his thunder, but a long history working with major corporations and small companies, but an impressive track record working with big companies, delivering consistent results for nearly 2 decades. And just one example. So the guy knows what he's talking about when it comes to selling, when it comes to presenting, to persuading, to building your case. And so you're in for a treat. As you may have remembered from the last couple of episodes, I've been talking about how I've been getting my butt kicked in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and it is humbling. I have little people choking me out, and it is humbling. But I'm also noticing after just 2 weeks, I'm getting better. But this is 2 crazy weeks. And actually, my first couple of lessons were back-to-back, and then I had to travel for a few days. Then I hit 6 days in a row, and then we were off on Sunday, now hitting again, launching this on Valentine's Day, and I'm going tonight. So I bring that up because I don't see many people really getting out of their comfort zone in anything, let alone literally getting out of their physical comfort zone to train hard. And, you know, I've led a pretty calm life. Back in, I don't remember now, 2011, it may have been, I think it was early 2012, I did the Tough Mudder and with some friends. And you know what? The same guy that got me to do the Tough Mudder got me to do this Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So he's either a very good friend or I need to be more selective in my friends. I'm not real sure. But that Tough Mudder was cool. You know, I was glad, you know, looking back, I'm glad that I did it. And now, you know, getting into Jiu-Jitsu, it was, I literally hurt all over, ankles, knees, multiple places in my back, shoulders, wrists, bruises, crazy, but I loved it. Now, you don't have to go that hard, right? I went hard. When I commit to something, I commit. But you can tell people, it is really cool, the way people, you know, you can tell them, hey, I'm injured, hey, go easy. Because the last several days, something's going on in my ribs, my chest, I don't know. You lay on it and it just hurts. So going through the motions, you know, learning a new move, you know, the guys are sensitive to that and they go easy. Okay. So I don't want you to think you got to be, you know, subjecting yourself to massive pain to do this. But if you put some effort into it, you know, you're going to get some bumps and bruises here and there. It's a physical sport. It's a self-defense sport. And it's a skill, and it's fantastic. But I'm losing weight. I'm getting much better cardio, getting stronger. But like I said, I'm learning these skills, but I'm getting humbled, right? And it's keeping me hungry. I mean, looking back when I started doing the Tampa Bay Frogman swim, I'd never done an open water swim. I swam out about half a mile to a rock here in Southern California and back. Call it Seal Rock by Seal Beach, where all the sharks swim. So I did that, but I never did 3.1 miles in the open ocean. I trained and I did it. Now in this jiu-jitsu, I'm training, I'm going to get better. But I always say, anything worth doing is worth doing poorly until you get good at it. So what are you getting good at? What are you physically being pushed and being forced to struggle? Something that makes you work, something that gets you frustrated. It lights a fire in your belly to improve. Or do you just tuck your tail, go suck your thumb, go get you your safe place? Right? Life does not work that way. So what are you doing to push yourself? Because I have found that as I push myself physically, I'm pushing myself harder in my business. The two do go together. It's not mutually exclusive. It's not as though you have this, super finite, limited amount of energy and creativity. Right? By exerting yourself in one area, you'll find you have the energy and the motivation to exert yourself in another. As David comes up and shares some fantastic information on presenting and how to persuade one to many, there's going to be some new things in there. How much of them are you going to apply? Right? I don't want you just listening to this. I want you implementing. That's why I ask at the end, what one thing should my listeners go do as a result of listening to this to improve their business, to improve their life, to improve their sales? So begin with the end in mind. All right, start thinking as you go into this podcast, what can you do to get better? What can you do as a result of this to grow your sales? Okay, I want you to stretch. I want you to push yourself. And you know what? I am pushing myself 10 times harder by training with others than I would when I'm alone. And for the last several years, I've been alone. I haven't had a workout partner. My swimming, I did alone. I didn't join a master's class. I just went to my local LA Fitness or my community pool and just swim. And so having others, having a coach, right, a professor, they call him, the guy that runs the dojo. So he's a world champion from Brazil. He's done this for dozens of years. He's an expert. And having an expert lead and having contemporaries, right? There's two other guys that started the same day as me. One is older, one is younger. But there are plenty of other white belts. But there's plenty of other blue belts, purple belts, and several black belts. Being surrounded by like-minded people, motivated people, looking to grow, looking to help, knowing that they don't know, knowing that it's a journey, helps me go that much harder. Helps me find 2 hours out of the day, midday, to go knock this out. And like today, as I record this, I had appointments midday. I could not move, so I'm going tonight. I'm making the time. And I find now that this is on my schedule first, and I'm making time for everything else. I'm waking up earlier. I'm waking up easier and getting stuff done, so I have time to go continue to push myself. So in sales, what are you doing? How are you surrounding yourself? So consider the Make Every Sale course your online sales and marketing dojo. Right? You can make 12 payments. You can make one payment, save some money, but that gives you lifetime access. And I guarantee you, it's a lot less than I'm paying for a year of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But that's ongoing, right? That'll never end. MakeEverySale.com, one-time payment, lifetime access. I don't know how else to help you get uncomfortable. To be comfortable while being uncomfortable, that's what I'm offering. And it'll be almost unlimited access to me, okay, through live trainings, through video on-demand trainings, through our private group where you can ask questions. I'm online most of the time. You can reach me. If it's an emergency, we're going to help you, okay, right then and there. So check that out, please, MakeEverySale.com, your online dojo to make more dough And now, right after you do that, come back and listen to David Hutchison. David Hutchison, my neighbor here in Southern California, co-founder of Fire Up Training, right? Fire up your presentations. Welcome to the Sales Podcast, man. How the heck are you?
I'm doing really well, Wes. I mean, it's a holiday, Martin Luther King, but we're still working and excited to have a conversation with you today about what I always tell people. This is really this is your number one business skill. I might be a little bit biased, but we're going to be talking about presentations.
Well, I won't even say anymore. Just go. Okay, how's that? Just go. Yeah, so it was funny. We were talking. We ran across each other online, and emails got lost for a couple of years, and I was clearing stuff out, so we were able to connect. And then my flight was actually on time. I ran across two people that I haven't seen in years. A guy I went to high school with. He was on my plane, so we were talking, and so I got home late. So thanks for being flexible. But you are the co-founder, right, with Tom McCarthy of fireuptraining.com. And so the presentation training that delivers breakthrough results. What the heck makes you a presentation guru, huh? Who died and made you the presentation king? Can you answer that for us?
Well, I think we probably voted for ourselves. That's not fair.
Awesome.
And we're not claiming to be that. I mean, you know what? We've definitely made every mistake out there known to man or woman. But, yeah, and we've definitely paid the price. I mean, in fact, that's what brought us out to San Diego. I moved out here in 1989, Wes. I was involved with a guy named Tony Robbins, to Anthony or Tony, whatever name you go by. But, you know, both my partner and I were really responsible for helping build that sales and marketing organization in the late 80s, early 90s. And, you know, we did it by going out there 2-3 times a day with a sales force of about 30, and we filled up his one-day business seminars and the different programs that he offered. And we did it by going into sales organizations and giving them a free workshop. You know, 30 minutes to an hour, gave them some skills from Tony's one-day seminar and really enticed them and sold tickets to see him live. So we learn, you know, how to present by going out there to presenting to salespeople to come see him live. And so that's where it all started way back in the late 80s, early 90s.
Okay, so now, you know, this is what I do, man. I play the devil's advocate because our listeners are going to say, you know what? Two things. One, I'm not Tony Robbins. And two, that was 27 years ago. It doesn't count today. Everything is different. And you say?
Well, I think, you know what, when it comes to presenting, and by the way, I don't even like the word presenting. My partner and I just wrote a book about a year ago, our latest book, and it's how to win the presentation game, Wes. And what I tell people is, listen, it's not your fault. I don't think anybody really showed you or gave you the insights and really the strategies on how to do it. And so it's kind of, to me, like playing Monopoly. You know, the first time you played that game, I don't know about you, but you know what? I wasn't that great. I didn't do well. But as I went through it and I learned, you know what? Today I'm a better player and my success ratio is a lot higher. And so what we have done is we've taken the last 27 years and we've put it all together. And really what we've done is we've boiled it down to 3 things that you have to do to be outstanding and really win the game. And I won't go into too much detail, but I'll just quickly tell you. And then if you want more, then obviously ask me, Wes. But the first thing is you have to create an engaging story. You've had to do that for the last 27 years. But people, I think, struggle with that. And, I mean, do you know where the content should go and the right order? Are you memorizing what you have to say? Do you have to use PowerPoint or do you not? How much information to put on a slide, et cetera, et cetera. And that's number one. Number two, you got to show up feeling like a winner. At the end of the day, you know what, how you feel is probably, I don't know, again, you know, this is not a scientific number, but let's say 60 to 70% of our success is how you feel. Not only in presenting, but I would tell you in life, it's how you show up. And then the last thing is when you deliver that message, are you delivering it with charisma? And because we believe, and I always ask this question, so I'll ask you, Wes, if it's okay, maybe just to turn this on you if it's all right. But if I asked you the question, why do you give a presentation? Why are you doing that today? What are some of the answers do you think we might hear?
Oh, man. Most people, I think, they give presentations to maybe educate or to try to build up their case, and they end up maybe doing too much of a demo, and they're trying to win over a customer or a group of customers, a group of prospects, and they either end up putting them to sleep or giving them too much information and confusing them, and so almost nothing ends up happening because of what they were trying to do.
Well, you're absolutely right. You hit the nail on the head. And the number one answer is really what you said. I'm going to go in there today, David, and I'm going to educate them. Depending on what industry you're in, we deal a lot in the technology industry, so I'm going to do a data dump. I go, well, that's not really why you're going to give a presentation today. Well, then the other answer is number two, I'm going to get them excited about my company and my product and me. No, I'm sorry to tell you that's not the answer either. And so what we believe is a presentation is really built and delivered to do this. It's to drive action. And how you know you did your job is that when you were done, the audience did something they wouldn't have done until they heard from you. Mm-hmm. And don't ever forget it. Now, don't get me wrong. In that process, are they going to get excited about you? Absolutely. In that process, maybe you have to give them some information. Absolutely. But at the end of the day, we're driving action. Right. And we believe it takes three things to do that. And so that's what we're really focused on, is how to help people put together their story, feel like a winner, and drive that action. And that's what we do.
Interesting. And I know just from personal failures, I mean, I'm a great presenter. I'm a great entertainer. I'm educational, connect with the audience. But I really struggled with not wanting to come across salesy or pitchy, right? And not getting enough call to action. Because I wanted to inform. I wanted to create that warm fuzzy. And I would always end up giving too much information. But you really do have to begin with the end in mind. But there's an art. I mean, we need people like you to help us massage this thing so we're not cheesy. And so that call to action becomes more fluid and natural, right? Is that what you'd say is kind of your sweet spot?
Yeah, absolutely. I like a lot of things that you said, and one really is really dear to our heart is that all presentations begin with a outcome. But when you ask people, you know what, hey, Wes, I need you to give a presentation next week to this company or this internal meeting or this audience, what most people tend to do, and I've done it myself, is, you know what am I going to say? How much time do I have? How many slides do I need to put together for this 45-minute talk? And by the way, you know what, Mary, I heard you did this talk maybe last year. Could I look at your slides and your deck, and can I borrow them? And what they end up doing is they make it 10 times harder than it has to be. So like you said, you must begin with the end in mind. So where all outstanding presentations begin is with an outcome. And once we know what the outcome is, then that dictates, or then we work backwards on how we put that story together, that messaging. You may not need any PowerPoint at all, depending on what that outcome is. Almost like when you're in your car and you need to go to a store or somewhere you've never been before, first question GPS device will ask is, what's my outcome? What's my destination? Right. And based on where you're at, I can tell you exactly how to get there. So, again, we take them through a process on how to do that, but starting with all presentations to become outstanding has to begin with an outcome. Absolutely.
So you mentioned PowerPoint. Mm-hmm. All right. I mean, do I need it? Do I need it? Please tell me I don't need it. Please, 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 please.
Well, here's the challenge again. Everything that I do, here's what I ask. It comes down to the outcome. And what people tend to do is they just kind of follow patterns. They go, well, I use PowerPoint because everybody does. I go, well, here's a question maybe I just offer to you. is this PowerPoint going to help me reach my outcome? That should dictate whether you use it or not. And then each slide in there, is that slide going to help me reach my outcome, or is that going to bore the audience to death?
Right.
Because you also mentioned something early on in this conversation, is that we tend to give too much information. Mm-hmm. And you're right. I always say brevity is power. Analysis equals paralysis. So too much information really shuts people down. And so the real question is you are the message, you're the presentation. What people end up doing, though, is they make it all about the PowerPoint, and they feel like that is the message. And unfortunately, that's not what equals, I would say, outstanding. And I say that to you because one thing I should have started off with this, Wes, but, what we've done, and we've been doing a long time, but we've surveyed our clients. And, there are a lot of successful companies out there and individuals, and we just asked them, when it comes to a presentation, what are you finding to be true? And we came up with some startling statistics that I hope it's okay if I can share them with your audience.
Sure.
Is that okay?
Sure.
So when we surveyed them, we said, listen, when you go out on a presentation, how soon do you think people are tuning out? And what the response was is they said, you know what, here we go. Here are the numbers. Number one. We find that 45% of the people that are in the audience today are tuning out because they don't find the presenter or the information interesting. Almost 50%. That's alarming.
Now,
That's
is this what your customers think is happening, or are these the numbers you found?
Well, we found it in surveying them when they go. Okay. Yeah. So it's their responses.
45 tune out. So like almost immediately, or at least at some point.
Yeah. No. So they said within the first 5 minutes.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. All right. 63% of them said presentations are a waste of time. Now, again, these are people that use presentations to, again, close more business, drive business, educate, et cetera, et cetera. And this is why I say it's a problem. Here's number 3, and there's 5. 73% said they're completely tuned out after 10 minutes. And I don't know if you've ever been on a video call or a boring presentation, but what people tend to do is we always say we live in a distracted world. Well, they're saying after about 10 minutes, I'm completely tuned out.
Now, are these in person? Are they webinars? Is it all the above?
Yeah, it's all the above, but I would say this. I don't have the exact date on that, but I would say in a video presentation, this is probably more alarming.
Right.
And, and again, I always say, because number one rule for us is you must turn your video on, and most people don't.
Right.
Most people don't on a video call. And so I always tell people, you're going to play at a higher level when the camera's on. That's why you do it. And again, one of our little simple thoughts is to be outstanding is you have to make it about your audience, not about you.
Right.
And they need to see your video. So real quick, last 2 numbers. Next one is this. 95% of the audiences are finding presentations boring. They're just finding them boring today. And again, too much, people are relying too much on PowerPoint, too much information, too salesy. And what I always say, it's not a conversation. It's a pitch. It's a pitch. But here's the last thing. 14% said that presentations usually persuade them to take action. 14%. And again, the point I made earlier in this conversation is that, we really feel that the goal and the outcome is to drive action. And they're saying about 14% of those out there are actually doing that today. So that's the problem. And what we've been working on is how to solve it. We're not the only answer. Clearly not. But what we've learned in the last almost 30 years is, again, a simple formula on how to win this game. And that's what we do consistently around the world, is working with individuals and corporations and helping getting their teams to go out there and do that on a daily basis.
So that's what I was going to ask you. Like, how much are you working with like entrepreneurs, doing webinars versus like corporate people, going into an organization? Because I've done both. I worked in corporate America. I have sold technology to Verizon and Google and the local IT shop, and then being alone. I've spoken on stages. I sell one-to-one. So are these rules and processes kind of universal?
You know what? Yeah, that's a great question, Wes. And like you, we've been in that same boat. So, both not only just my business partner, but the other folks that work with us, a lot of us are professional speakers. So we speak around the world. We do a lot of large engagements for a lot of the major corporations out there. So we do it at that level. I've been involved in running 2 software companies. So I've gone out there and I've made the technical presentation. I've had the team of engineers and product specialists with me. And so we've done it on that level also. The good news is it really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're in a one-on-one conversation or if you're in front of 10,000 people in front of a live audience. The same rules apply.
Right.
And as well as, let's say, a video versus a face-to-face. There may be some minor distinctions, but for the most part, I would say 98% of it is exactly the same in our minds.
So something I'm curious, and I'm willing to bet my listeners are curious. I've heard of the Tony Robbins model, and a lot of people have heard of similar things. And we see it a lot, free webinar, and then they'll sell something at the end. So they know the model. But I know I scratch my head. It's like, man, how can you deliver good information, make an impact, pique curiosity, and drive action in as little as 30 minutes? Is that like, you got some voodoo, man? Are y'all like NLP hypnotizing people, or they're like some little nuggets you can share with us?
Yeah, no, I mean, we're well versed in NLP or NAC, whatever acronym you want to use with that science. But no, it's not a magic formula. But you know what? Again, I think what every decision comes down to in life is pain and pleasure. And when somebody buys from you, you know what? They avoided some pain and they found some, pleasure in your solution. When somebody doesn't buy from you, they probably associated more pain to buying than not buying. So one of the things that we help people do is when they construct their message, their story, and that's the word fire up. Fire up is an acronym on how to put your story together, how to follow it, and how much information. So early on, we actually help people bring pain back up to the surface. Because whenever we've encountered pain, whether it's emotional pain, physical pain, what do most people want to do, Wes? They probably want to put a what on it when you get a little scratch today or a little bit of pain. What do you probably want to put on that?
Whiskey.
Whiskey, all right. So
no. You drink the whiskey. You want a Band-Aid.
Yeah, that's right. Then drink the whiskey. Then drink it, right?
I got a one-track mind, man. You got to keep me focused.
No, I appreciate that. But so, yeah, after the whiskey or the Band-Aid, that's exactly right. We want to Band-Aid it. We want to sweep it. And so what we show people is how to artfully bring it up earlier on in the conversation. Because you know what? That's what people are doing. The people you're talking to, pain at the surface doesn't feel good. So we're gonna Band-Aid it and we're gonna push it away. The problem is that you end up not doing anything about it, and then it ends up getting a lot worse. And then it's not to that point that it gets a lot worse that people actually take the action. So what we help them do is craft their message where they're bringing the pain up earlier in the conversation so that, again, we drive the action. Because every decision, every action comes down in pain and pleasure. Mm-hmm. What we've found, though, is they want to get up there and start talking to the customer, and they want to start talking about all the features and benefits right up front, and they haven't even brought in the real pain yet of why we're doing it. And so pain gets attention, pain gets the action. So, I know that's pretty simple, but if there's something, again, I can take pieces out of there that maybe would be helpful. Is there something specific, though? Are you talking about delivery or feeling? Again, because we're talking about 3 things.
Right.
Put your story together, feel like a winner, and then how do you deliver your message with charisma? I want to make sure this is valuable to your audience, Wes. So is it if you want me to expand on any of those, just let me know.
Yeah, there's a lot there. And again, you need to practice what you preach, right? And sure. I imagine you've got some reports or tools or webinars or something they can opt in for and follow up. Because, what helped me make the mental transition was actually listening to Zig Ziglar over and over and over again. Right? And he would always say, you got to listen to my stuff 10, 12, 15, 16 times until you're completing my sentences. He says, because then it becomes self-talk. But one of the things that he said was, he said, I can go in, and he actually did blood tests of his attendees. And because he was so good, even after many hours of presenting, the serotonin and the blah, 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 all the other chemicals in the blood that basically like pleasure receptors, even after many hours, people were still on a high, right? But he said, even that though, no matter how good I am, it's going to drop as soon as they leave. And then they're going to forget stuff, and he said, if I just go and give them a rah-rah and don't do the real job of persuading them to invest in my programs, then I'm doing them a disservice. So I had to make that mental leap like, okay, I'm not pulling a fast one on them to get them to sign up for something or buy or whatever, because that's truly the purpose of the presentation, is to get them to that next step instead of, I'm not going to just change their lives in that presentation. And so did you have kind of a similar sort of aha moment? Because I think once we all get over that hurdle, then we're open to your training programs, right? We're open to the fire up method. We're open to beginning with the end in mind, which is to take that action. Because I know for me, like I felt like a snake oil salesman until that sunk into me. And now I'm much more laid back in my presentations and much more open and honest about, hey, y'all got to take the next step here. And that's to invest your time, your money, something, if you really want to grow.
Well, absolutely. I mean, if you don't work on yourself, if you don't improve yourself, I always say you're going backwards.
Yep.
Because everything else around you is getting better. It is improving. And so you whatever it is, you have to walk your talk. But what we found is that you don't have to do everything that we share with people. And our number one training is it's a fire up 2-day class to be outstanding. It is a journey. But as you know, if you can take one or two things and use it and do it consistently, over a 12-month period, if you really measured that's a big change, a big improvement. But our style is not just lecturing and writing and taking notes that time. It's actually getting people up, presenting, videotaping them, coaching them, and going through it. Not only, again, you're writing it, but you're physically doing this where you can really create some lasting change. And then we do a lot of follow-up afterwards. Again, I've been giving seminars since '89, and I think all of it is of value. But how do you get people to really take it and grasp it and use it, kind of what you said? And so, again, we've boiled it down to three things. If we had a class and I said, hey, Wes, here's what it takes to be outstanding. You got to do these 100 things. That'd be pretty difficult to do.
Right.
But that's why we've simplified it. And we just said, hey, listen, we boiled it down to three things you got to do to be outstanding. And again, we go through that with people. And again, we make huge impact on organizations. And if you look at our track record, I mean, we got clients, we've been in there for 17 years. I mean, one Cisco Systems, they spent over $1 billion on training, over $1 billion a year, and we have the highest rated training class in all of Cisco Systems. And I say that not to be boastful or bragging. Please don't take it that way at all. It's because it works. That's a company that has the resource and money to pick and choose who they want to bring in, and they do that. And we've been able to be in there for the last 17 years and have the highest rated class. Why? Because it works. We get results. And so but again, we're not going out there and it's 100 things you have to do.
Right.
And the good news is that some of these things we found you're outstanding when you're with your family and your friends and you're just having a conversation around a table in a restaurant and you're charismatic or whoever it is. But then you see that person, very same person, go into a sales meeting and they go into what I call that presentation mode, and it becomes very plastic, and it's very pitchy and salesy, and it's hard to connect. And so the number one thing that we tell people is that when you get in front of a group, here's really what you want to focus on. It is just a conversation with one person at a time for about the count of 5. And then once you've been there long enough and you've pulled that person in, then you go look and grab somebody else and then start to engage them in about a 5-second conversation, one person at a time.
Right.
So that's where some of the charisma delivery begins with, just by doing that. What most people do, Wes, is they scan the room looking all over the place, and unfortunately they're not connected with anybody, and that creates a lot of anxiety. So
yeah.
But you're spot on.
What's your take on, visuals versus none? Because I'm a little torn right now. I came up in corporate America, they wanted us to use these decks, and I would always change them or just stop using them and just talk. In my own, like when I'm training, I need slides, especially on technology and stuff, because I got to show them screenshots and stuff. But when I'm presenting or speaking, and I want that call to action at the end, I would rather not use slides. I always remember Frank Sinatra said, if you need anything more than a microphone and a spotlight, you're a chump. I was like, okay, that's what Frank said. But I know some other big speakers, big trainers, are like, hey, you got to have this dialed in, moving, multimedia, timed, choreographed, rehearsed presentation. It's like, oh my gosh. I mean, how do you decide?
Well, here's what I would say. Again, it comes down to, again, we begin with the question, is the slide going to help me reach my outcome? If you really answer that honestly, it's probably going to be no. And then you're just doing it because everybody else does it. It's the accepted thing to do. But again, if you think about it, it's just a tool. Whether it's an easel, whether it's a whiteboard, if it's a monitor, again, PowerPoint, whatever, they're just tools. They're just tools to help you reach the outcome. But what people end up doing is, again, they're almost to a point where when the slide's up, they're afraid to get in front of the PowerPoint screen. And they end up looking at it the entire time. And then I always ask Wes, when you're looking at that slide, what do you think your audience is doing?
Yep.
They're looking at it also. And when you put a bunch of words up there on a slide, what do you think they're doing? Mm-hmm. They're reading it. You're right. The human brain cannot listen to you speak and read your slides at the same time. They're going to do one or the other.
Right.
So the reality is this, is that I'm not saying don't use PowerPoint, but we videotape people with or without it. I'm just saying the way people build their PowerPoints is really not that effective.
Right.
And so one of the basic rules out there is called the 5x5 rule. Have you ever heard of that one before, Wes? 5x5 as it relates to PowerPoint slide?
No.
Do you have a guess? Any idea what it might relate to?
I'm thinking like no more than 5 bullets, or no more than maybe no more than 5 words per slide, something like that.
Hey, I love it. Listen, I've heard 5 minutes and 5 seconds and all kinds of stuff. But yeah, no. So yes, I think you're close, really close there. Or just maybe add a little piece to it. So what we found is that again, when you put a bunch of words up there, they're going to read it, and you're going to feel compelled to read it yourself. So 5x5 is, and again, for me, it's just kind of a basic standard. But when you put a slide together, no more than 5 bullets or 5 lines on a slide. And each bullet or line should not have more than 5 words to it.
Hey, I think I get a smiley face for that.
You do get one. Absolutely. And then the other thing for me is that again that's just the basic standard. But what I tell people is this: the most powerful slide that's really going to move somebody. How many words do you think it has on the slide, Wes?
It's probably just a picture.
There you go. You're absolutely right. And what I always tell people is pictures sell, words tell.
Yep.
Listen, you can just send them all the white papers and bullet points and brochures you want, all right? But again, when you're up there telling a story, and that's what it is for us, it's a story. It's not a digital dump. you know what, all those words, they're not that exciting. They're not looking at your word and going, wow, I've never seen that word engaging on a slide before. But when you put a picture up there that can move somebody emotionally, that's where the impact is. Yeah. And it's kind of it's that old famous Chinese proverb. What is it? A picture's worth what?
Yeah. Well, they say 1,000 words.
Yeah, I go, well, maybe, but I always say in my training, here's what I tell you about a picture on a slide. A picture on a slide is worth thousands of dollars, depending on what you're selling or offering.
Right.
So, yeah, so absolutely. I think I always tell people, I'm not saying don't use it, but if you are going to use it, build them in a way that is impactful, because the slide is not your presentation. Yeah. And you're going to love this. It's not really for the audience.
Yeah.
Slides for whom?
For you.
That's it. It should just be a tool to trigger into your mind what you really want to talk about and share, but not word for word what you want to say about something, because that's, again, that equals boring, back to the study that we did with all those folks that have gone through our programs.
Yeah, I saw Jeffrey Gitomer years ago, 2010, 2011, somewhere in there. I think it was around Easter of 2011. And I remember he said, slides are cheap, use another. Right? Meaning like don't overload it with words. And he was really good. He said he never used any font smaller than 48. Yeah. So he would go really big, and he was really colorful, changes the font style and color on just about every slide, but a lot of pictures. But that always sunk in with me. Slides are free, add another, to make your point, rather than just, because people, they'll put just a paragraph on their slide. It's like, oh my gosh, we're dead.
Well, absolutely. Or my favorite is when they put a quote up there and they just start reading the quote.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, I always, you're the message, you're the presentation. It's a lot more impactful coming from you. But what we help people do is work on how to deliver that so it's interesting.
Right.
So they want more, not even making it a flashy font or whatever, but making you the flashy font.
Right.
Is, again, through your delivery.
Right.
So what I tell people is you have to work 10 times harder than the audience will. This is hard work. You got to work hard so they don't have to, because the audience is not going to work hard to stay engaged. You have to bring them in through the way you deliver your message.
Right. Very cool. All right, man. So some parting words of wisdom. This is kind of how I've been ending my interviews. Is, imagine our listeners, they're jogging, they're on a plane, they're riding a bike, they can't take notes right now and implement what, as soon as they can, though, as a result of listening to this, what should they do to improve? I mean, should they go to their website? Should they make out their goals? Should they have somebody evaluate themselves? Should they record themselves? What should they implement that can make a difference fast?
Well, I think that's a great question, Wes. And so listen, would we love for you to go to our website? Absolutely. Not just go to it, but, again, I think what we're talking about is back at, even when I was involved with Tony Robbins, the key to success is taking action. Mm-hmm. And, again, a lot of people have education, but education not used, right? That doesn't equal success. But absolutely, and again, it doesn't have to be our website. I think to me the parting words are, whatever you do, and again, as I said earlier, maybe in our conversation, I'm a little biased, but I've been not only delivering presentations, but I've been involved with sales training, leadership. I speak on it all over the world. And I firmly believe this is your number one skill. We are judged by how we communicate and how we come across. But you have to work on it. And this is not something, that person's a born presenter. No, they're not.
Right.
You show me anybody that you feel is charismatic and can really drive action. There's somebody that's worked on that. And so when's the last time you've worked on this skill? And if you haven't, then you owe it to yourself to do that. And it doesn't have to be our training program, but find one out there. But I know without a doubt we could help you. We don't do as much in the public arena, though. I will say a lot of our work is individual. We do it on that level, but a lot of it is corporate.
Right.
But you know what? We have a website, fireuptraining.com, and it's fire and then up training. And it was built in a way, hopefully, just to give people information based on really what we could help them with. And so that would be just one area if they were to go and see what we have. We have a couple books up on Amazon that we've written. One with my brother and I, Speaking Mastery, my partner and I, Win the Presentation Game, and then my partner on his own, Fire Up Your Presentations. Cool. And so those are some other tools or resources. But, I appreciate the opportunity to have a conversation with you today, Wes, and just, let your audience know hopefully a little bit more about what we do. And, just remember this, it's not a presentation. It's just a conversation.
Right.
And you were built to get into conversations, and you do that every day. And that's where you're charismatic and outstanding. But don't go out there and be a presenter, because that's difficult to do. And so just remember, it's a conversation one person at a time. That's all it really takes, I think, to really start you on your path to being outstanding.
Right. Well, that is outstanding advice. All right, man. Well, this has been great. So David Hutchison, SoCal. All right, if you come to Temecula, man, let me know. Do a little wine tasting. I'm just saying.
We love those wineries over there, Wes, I got to tell you.
I'm just saying.
And I do pass through your neck of the woods just on the way to the desert. So that's 74 over there off the freeway. It's kind of our straight shot. Well, not straight shot, but towards the direction of the mountains and then down to the desert floor.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're on this side of San Diego, definitely let us know. Take you out to lunch.
I will.
All right, sir. You have a great week. And, again, appreciate the opportunity to share some of this with your audience.
Hey, man. Thanks for coming on the show.
All right, sir. Take care. Cheers.
I don't know about you, but this has changed my thinking in a lot of ways, especially in the, most people make the mistake of going in to educate, but get them excited about the company, the product, or me, right? Both are wrong. You go in to drive action. Begin with the end in mind. And I've said this before, and I'll keep saying it, and that's because it took a long time to get into my brain. And that was the story of Zig Ziglar, where he talked about his goal wasn't to just excite you at a conference. His goal was to get you to buy his books and his CDs, and especially his tapes, right, back then. And he would tell you, listen to them 15, 16, 17 times until you're finishing the sentences. Then it becomes self-talk instead of somebody on the outside. When it's self-talk, you believe it. That's what we do in our presentations. We have to make them do self-talk. We have to get our prospects seeing themselves winning and succeeding. So you have to drive that action. And so when you're going there, you should not feel bad. You should not feel like you're manipulating the attendees, the guests in the audience. Don't feel like you're manipulating them into buying something. The whole reason you're there, the whole reason you're giving your talk is to shift their focus, their energy, their desire, their drive, so they invest in what you offer for long-term growth. Otherwise, you're just a dancing chicken. All right, you're up there, rah-rah, you leave, everybody goes and has a drink. The next day they forget what your name was. So did you really make an impact with that talk, or were you just there to make a buck? Okay, so you got to understand why you're going in there. What's your outcome? Do you just follow it just because everyone else does? Brevity is power. You are the message. Zig Ziglar, again, always said this, right? People, selling is nothing but the transference of a feeling, and that feeling is confidence. So you are the confidence. You are what's being sold. The product is just what they give you money for, but they're buying you. Okay, so you got to understand that. Go back and listen to this again and again. He's been doing this, like you said, with Cisco, 17 years. Remember how to be charismatic. You do it normally. You do it naturally. At least you did as a child. Now you get all this negative head trash and self-talk that's defeating, and you limit yourself. You limit yourself in your presentations. You limit your impact. And when you do that, you're not helping the world get better, at least in the little sliver of life that you're an expert in. So you owe it to yourself, your families, your customers, your city, your state, your country, your county, your universe to get better at presenting, to telling your story to drive action. Okay? That's why you're hearing me more and more. I got some clarity recently in driving action, narrowing my focus on the Make Every Sale course. Come on in. Join us. It's not a big group right now. You're going to get a lot of one-on-one attention that I will not be able to offer as the group grows. So makeeverysale.com, head on over there, enroll. Let's help you start selling, improving your sales, improving your presentations. Okay? It's all free game in that group. You have questions about how I've written and published books, how I've done these podcasts, how I do webinars, how I write emails, how I create follow-up sequences, what technology am I looking at now. It's all free game. All right? So if you're willing to get sore mentally and improve your sales, makeeverysale.com. And also make sure you are subscribed to this podcast, not just listening online. Because when you do that, that helps the show bubble up in the ratings. It helps with reviews, and the more people that see it, the more people I can serve, and then the more people that I can serve through the podcast. Okay, they eventually buy programs, they buy consulting. Helps me keep this show free. Okay, so thanks for listening, and remember to sell different.